Wuhan, China will forever be associated with the COVID-19 outbreak, but the city is so much more than that. And for Laura Gao, it's not only the place that she was born in, but one that she wants to offer a broader perspective on. So today we're going to take a deeper look at her graphic memoir titled Messy Roots, and we'll do it without spoilers. Let's get into it. Messy Roots actually started out as a webcomic that Gao drew and posted to social media called The Wuhan I Know. She wanted people to know about the rich history and culture of the city, something beyond what was being seen in the headlines. She touched so many people, and one person asked if she was writing anything else. So she expanded on that webcomic, and that's what the book Messy Roots became. In it, Laura Gao takes us through her idyllic childhood in Wuhan, China. She spent time with her cousins and grandparents in the countryside amongst infinite rice paddies and peaceful lily pad ponds. At the age of 4, she moved from Wuhan to a small town in Texas called Coppell to be reunited with her parents, and she was immediately faced with culture shock. She spent years trying to fit in at mostly white schools, basically until she graduated high school. It was only once she went off to college and subsequently moved to San Francisco that she found her communities, both Asian and queer. Throughout the book, we see Gao navigate complexities like being an immigrant child, working through feelings about her sexual identity, and longing for connection and seeing herself reflected in those around her. Oh, and this is all before a global pandemic lands at her doorstep. The book was released in March of this year, and I first discovered it about a month later when I got invited to attend a digital interview with Gao. It was the first time I had ever heard the term graphic memoir before. I had definitely heard of a graphic novel, and later discovered that while the term novel typically refers to a work of fiction, a graphic novel can be a piece of nonfiction, like in this case. I was really intrigued by the idea, and I decided to read it, and it ended up being so much better than I expected. Though I'm not Asian nor queer, I found it to be a really enjoyable read and insight into Chinese culture, even if I didn't understand all the references, which, to be fair, Gao does a really excellent job of explaining throughout the book. So let's talk about that and 4 other things that I loved about this graphic memoir. It provides a passive way to be exposed to Chinese language, culture, and food. Throughout the book, we see the language being explained, like how there are different words for your maternal and paternal grandparents, which honestly, I wish English also did. We get Wuhanese 101, which coincidentally is also on page 101, and we're encouraged to bookmark that page to refer back to in the future. Throughout the book, there are these little phrases in Chinese, some translated and explained and others not, and I love that. Not everything needs clarification and description. We see traditions like playing mahjong or calling one another on Lunar New Year and cooking together. Oh, and speaking of food, we learn a lot about Chinese cuisine throughout the book. I heard Laura Gao say in an interview once that she had such culture shock when she moved to the States, but the biggest area was around food. She was too embarrassed to bring her home cooking to school because she would get tormented for having something so different to what the other kids were used to eating and seeing. And that leads me to the next thing that I really liked about this book, and that is all the Easter eggs and symbolism throughout. One Easter egg related to food that we saw was Gao's school friend having a Punchables, which is no doubt a play on the classic Lunchables. A recurring character that we see in different forms is the rabbit. There's a lot of symbolism and meaning related to it, and I won't give it away, but it also makes appearances in a couple panels in very subtle ways, which may take a second or third reading to pick up on. Throughout the story, we see that Gao has a variety of friends who are people of color and queer, and the representation is pretty strong, especially throughout the latter half of the book. They're allies for the LGBTQIA+ community, and they also help her to express herself and accept herself, and they support her coming out to those around her. And the way that this book is able to package conversations about queerness, family traditions and expectations, identity in a white supremacist society, anti-Asian racism, and friendship and found family, while still being a light and accessible read, is one of the things that I love most. Oh, and we can't forget about the use of colors and the illustration style. Gao's colorist did an amazing job of using color not only to set us in different cities, Wuhan, Coppell, and San Francisco, but also memories, emotional states, dreams, and nightmares. In graphic novels, the images are just as important to the story as the bits of writing, but the level of of color detail in this book adds another layer of depth to the storytelling in a way that I really appreciated. And Gao's illustration style was really fun and expressive. In some ways, it almost felt like sketches, which kind of mimicked the pacing of this book, which leads me to the parts that I felt a little bit frustrated with. The book was a little bit too fast-paced for me at times. I found myself really engrossed in her story, and there were a few moments where the transitions were quite abrupt. For instance, one moment we're at a culture show at her college that's organized by the school's Chinese Student Association, and the very next we're at her college graduation with absolutely no transition between the two. They're even on adjacent pages with no text accompanying either. I found that I wanted more discussion and more observation, but I also have to balance that with the fact that this is a work of nonfiction. This is someone's actual life, and I'm not entitled to every single detail. So in that vein, I can't disregard the possibility that further exploration of these difficult topics could have been something that Gao didn't want to put to page, and I respect that. And since the pace was so fast, I really had no sense of time. Her transition from middle school to high school to college happened in the blink of an eye, but I had to pay attention to the context clues to really get a sense of where I was. And to go back to Easter eggs just a little bit, I understand that this is the first edition, so some inconsistencies might be present, but one that I can't stop thinking about is the fake dating app called Tinder or Timber. It's spelled with both an N and an M on the very same page. Sorry, I can't help but to notice continuity errors. Overall, I really like this book and the writing style of Gao. Walking away, I felt like I had a vivid picture of who she is as a person and how the events of her past have shaped who she is today. And she said that one of the most surprising things of writing this was that she learned so much more about herself in the process. When she was researching for the book, she went home for a bit and she would look at old journal diaries and photo albums. She would also have conversations with her parents that provided her with so much more context on why certain things were the way they were when she was a kid, like how her father was always stressed out around the holidays. That got expanded upon in the book. So in a lot of ways, this memoir is not only a retelling of her past and a way for readers to get in touch with Laura Gao, but also a way for her to do that for herself. I read in an interview she held with NPR that her parents haven't read the book yet and that they took her coming out pretty hard. But in the book's dedication, she says she hopes they'll one day read the book and understand everything. Two books that Gao says really inspired this memoir are Spinning by Tilly Walden, which is a graphic memoir about ice skating in Texas and is also a coming out story. There's also I Was Their American Dream by Malika Gharib. She's a Filipino-Egyptian immigrant who talks about her own experiences growing up in Cerritos, California. I'll leave a link for all of those books down in the description in the event that you want to check them out, and we'll be talking about I Was Their American Dream in the next video, so make sure you're subscribed and give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it so far. Messy Roots is a love letter to anyone trying to find themselves and their own identities, whether that's gender and sexual identities, racial and cultural identities, or anything else. It's a book that encourages young readers to live unapologetically loud and to live their truths.